What's up, Celtics Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Boston has been anything but quiet this offseason, and today we've got 4 stories that are shaking up the entire roster picture, from a superstar free agent who reportedly can't stand this franchise, to a cap crunch that could cost a brand new signing his job, to a young player finally cashing in, and a hidden gem who might be the most important X factor nobody's talking about. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we cover every single Celtics story as it breaks. Let's get into it. The LeBron James saga, and why Boston isn't invited. We're starting with the story that's dominating the entire NBA news cycle right now, because it directly affects the Celtics whether Boston fans like it or not. LeBron James and free agency. Here's where things stand. LeBron is currently a free agent, and after weeks of speculation, rumors, public recruiting pitches, and full-blown NBA soap opera energy, his decision could reportedly come at any moment. According to ESPN's Shams Charania, James is zeroing in on 3 main destinations: the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Miami Heat, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now here's the part that's going to sting if you're a Celtics fan. Boston is not on that list. Not even close. In fact, ESPN's Brian Windhorst has reportedly said that LeBron actually dislikes Boston as a market so much that he'd likely rank the Celtics dead last out of all 30 NBA teams if you asked him to list his preferred destinations. And it's not just outside reporters saying it. Celtics legend Paul Pierce was asked directly by TMZ whether LeBron should come play in Boston to help Jason Tatum chase another championship. Pierce's answer was blunt. He said Boston doesn't want LeBron on the Celtics, and that he thinks Cleveland is actually the best fit for him at this stage of his career. So why does any of this matter for a team LeBron isn't even considering? A few reasons, and this is where it gets interesting for Boston specifically. First, the ripple effect. Every single team LeBron is circling already has a crowded backcourt or a star who plays LeBron's position. Philadelphia just landed Jaylen Brown in a blockbuster trade with the Celtics, and if LeBron joins him there alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, that instantly becomes one of the scariest rosters in the Eastern Conference, a roster Boston will have to deal with for years. Miami just beat Boston to Giannis Antetokounmpo in free agency, and adding LeBron to a core with Giannis and Bam Adebayo would make the Heat an absolute nightmare matchup in the playoffs. Second, and this is the juicier part, LeBron's slow playing of this decision is reportedly holding up other dominoes around the league, and Boston is tangled up in at least one of them. Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher says former All-Star guard Bradley Beal is weighing his free agency options, and Beal's decision isn't necessarily being caused by LeBron, but it is being impacted by where LeBron lands. Fisher specifically said not to rule out Boston for Beal, largely because of his connection with Jason Tatum from their years playing together with Team USA. Think about that for a second. LeBron picks a team, that shifts the market for guys like Beal, and suddenly the Celtics roster could look completely different by the time training camp opens. That's how interconnected this offseason has become. There's also a personal element to LeBron's decision that's worth mentioning, because it shows just how far this goes beyond basketball. LeBron has publicly said he wants to join a team that shares his championship mindset and builds winning habits every single day. And he's even hinted that his young daughter's preferences could factor into where he ultimately signs. This isn't a guy chasing the biggest paycheck at this stage of his career. Reports consistently note that money has never been the deciding factor for him. That's part of why this has dragged out so long, and why NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has reportedly said LeBron's indecision has actually delayed the league's own schedule-making process. When your free agency decision is holding up an entire league's calendar, you know the stakes are enormous. And we haven't even gotten to why this LeBron news connects directly into our next story. Because if Boston really is in the mix for Bradley Beal, General Manager Brad Stevens has a serious math problem to solve. Let's get into it. Celtics Bradley Beal cap crunch. Someone has to go. This is the story that's got Celtics X, completely torn, because it involves a roster decision that nobody wants to make. Here's the situation. The Celtics front office did a ton of work this offseason to duck under the NBA's luxury tax line. That's not easy to do, and it usually means saying no to upgrades you'd otherwise love to make. Bradley Beal, the veteran sharpshooter and former All-Star, has been linked to Boston in free agency. But here's the problem. Signing him wouldn't be simple, even on a minimum contract. According to salary cap reporting, Boston currently has only about $1.7 million of breathing room before they cross back over that luxury tax line, along with one open roster spot. A veteran minimum deal for a player like Beal would run around $3.9 million. Do the math, and that pushes the Celtics roughly $2.2 million over the tax, money they'd be required to shed by the February trade deadline. So who's on the hot seat? All signs point to Mike Conley. Yes, the same Mike Conley Boston just signed this summer. His current cap number lines up almost perfectly with what it would cost to make room for Beal. In fact, once you factor in how veteran minimum salaries are calculated for cap purposes, swapping Beal in for Conley barely changes Boston's overall tax math at all. Now, is this a lock to happen? Not even close. Would the Celtics really cut a guy they just brought in a matter of weeks after signing him? That's a tough organizational look, and it's a fair question to ask. There's also a basketball argument against it. Beal is more of a scoring wing than a true point guard, so depending on where Boston feels they need depth most, swapping him in for Conley isn't automatically the right basketball move, even if the money works out cleanly. The Celtics could also get creative and move other pieces of the roster around to clear the necessary space. But most cap analysts agree that path risks creating a worse long-term situation than simply parting ways with an aging veteran on an expiring, cap-friendly deal. Bottom line, if Boston wants Bradley Beal, somebody currently on this roster almost certainly has to go. And right now, Mike Conley is the name at the top of that list. We'll keep tracking this one because it could change literally overnight. Let's also talk about the timeline pressure here, because that February trade deadline detail matters more than people realize. Boston technically has months to figure out the roster math, but the longer they wait, the more awkward it potentially gets, both for Conley and for team chemistry. Nobody wants to spend half a season wondering if they're about to get cut to make room for a bigger name. If Boston is serious about adding Beal, plenty of cap analysts think doing it sooner rather than later is the cleaner path, even if it means an uncomfortable conversation with a guy they just signed. There's also a bigger picture wrinkle worth mentioning. Mike Conley is set to become just the 14th player in NBA history to reach 20 seasons if he sticks around. And Boston's coaching staff has already talked publicly about how they plan to maximize his role in what could be a milestone campaign. That storyline makes this decision even messier. Are the Celtics really going to move on from a near legend on the doorstep of a historic achievement just to add scoring depth? It's the kind of call that looks clean on a spreadsheet and a lot more complicated in the locker room. And that tension is exactly why this rumor has taken off the way it has. Quick gut check for you. Drop a comment and let us know. If you're Brad Stevens, do you make this move? Beal for Conley, straight up. Yes or no? Jordan Walsh secures the bag. $15 million extension. Now let's talk about a genuinely feel-good story for Celtics fans. Because while the front office is juggling cap sheets and superstar rumors, one of Boston's own depth pieces just locked in his financial future. Jordan Walsh has agreed to a 3-year, $15 million contract extension with the Celtics that runs through the 2029-30 season. As part of the deal, Boston also picked up Walsh's team option for next season, meaning this young forward is now under contract with the organization for 4 more years total. Let's talk about why this matters. Walsh was Boston's second-round pick back in 2023, which means expectations were modest out of the gate. Second-round picks aren't guaranteed anything in this league. He barely saw the floor as a rookie. But he's steadily built on his opportunity ever since. 52 games played in his second season, and a career-high 68 games this past year, including 25 starts. And this past season was easily Walsh's best professional campaign. He averaged 5.4 points, 4 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 0.7 steals, and 0.5 blocks a night. Modest numbers on paper, but the story is in the efficiency and the trajectory. His three-point shooting jumped all the way up to 38.4%, a massive improvement that turned him from a defense and energy specialist into a legitimate two-way rotation piece. For the Celtics front office, this extension is about more than just rewarding a hard worker. It's smart business. With Jason Tatum's supermax money and Paul George's salary eating up such a massive chunk of the cap, Boston desperately needs cost-controlled young talent who can contribute winning minutes without breaking the bank. Locking up a 22-year-old two-way wing at $15 million over 3 years, in this market, at this stage of his development, is exactly the kind of value contract that championship-caliber front offices try to find. At 6'6" with legitimate defensive versatility and an improving jumper, Walsh has gone from a projected roster fringe guy to a player Boston is willing to bet on for the rest of the decade. That's a huge achievement for a former second-round pick, and it's the kind of story that shows the Celtics' player development machine is still working, even in a rebuild year.
Boston's hidden gem for 2026 to 27. Our final story of the day might end up being the most important one long-term, because it's about a player who could be quietly setting up for a breakout season. After a summer full of major roster changes in Boston, including, of course, the Jaylen Brown trade to Philadelphia, the Celtics are going to need young players to step up in a big way next season. And according to Bleacher Report's Greg Swartz, second-year forward Hugo Gonzalez is exactly that guy.
Schwartz named Gonzalez Boston's most disrespected hidden gem heading into the 2026-27 campaign. Let's rewind a bit. Gonzalez was actually drafted by the Celtics all the way back in 2022, 28th overall in the first round, but he stayed overseas developing his game before finally making his NBA debut last season. His rookie year role was limited. He averaged 3.9 points and 3.3 rebounds in just 14.6 minutes per game, but the flashes were real. Schwartz specifically highlighted his energy, his rebounding at a high level for his size, and a scorching stretch of 48.4% three-point shooting over his final 19 games of the season. That late-season shooting surge is a massive signal. It suggests Gonzalez isn't just a hustle and energy guy. He might genuinely be developing into a knockdown shooter, which, paired with his physical, versatile defense, gives him a real shot at carving out a much bigger role now that Jaylen Brown's minutes are up for grabs. And it's not just outside analysts buzzing about him. Celtics assistant coach Emile Jefferson has been raving about Gonzalez's growth this offseason, describing him as a true professional who has the physical tools to guard multiple positions and impact winning regardless of matchup. Gonzalez also reportedly closed out Summer League with an impressive stretch of play that had the Celtics coaching staff taking notice. Put it all together, a first-round pedigree, a rookie season full of encouraging flashes, a red-hot shooting stretch to end the year, glowing reviews from the coaching staff, and a wide-open path to more minutes, and you've got all the ingredients for a legitimate breakout season. If Boston is going to survive the loss of Jaylen Brown's production, Hugo Gonzalez stepping up in year 2 might be one of the quiet keys to making it work. So let's recap where the Celtics stand. LeBron James almost certainly isn't walking through that door, and Boston is bracing for the fallout across the rest of the league. Bradley Beal might be walking through that door instead, but only if somebody like Mike Conley walks out of it first. Jordan Walsh just proved player development is alive and well in Boston, with a well-earned extension. And Hugo Gonzalez might be the breakout name you need to know before next season even tips off. That's a lot of moving pieces, and honestly, that's the Celtics offseason in a nutshell. Nothing quiet, nothing simple, and nothing settled just yet. Which of these 4 stories has you most fired up? Drop it in the comments. LeBron snubbing Boston, the Beal-Conley cap situation, Walsh's extension, or Hugo Gonzalez's hidden gem status. I read every single comment, so let me know down below. That's today's Celtics breakdown. LeBron snub, the Beal-Conley cap drama, Jordan Walsh's big payday, and Boston's hidden gem for next season. Which story has you talking? Drop it in the comments, smash that like button, subscribe to Celtics Daily Hub, and hit the bell so you never miss a beat. Let's go Celtics!